Welcome in to the Hot Read Podcast live here on Friday, April the 4th. I am your host, JT Ruhnke, writer and reporter here at the 440 Sports Podcast Network. You can follow me on Twitter /X/ whatever you want to call it, at JT_Ruhnke. And joined on another Hot Read Happy Hour Friday is none other than my good friend Stoney Keeley, editor-in-chief of M.L.Rose Network, one half of Football and Other F Words, and co-writer over at Stacking the Inbox. Stoney, how you doing, my friend? Have you survived the initial wave of thunderstorms, the onslaught, the flooding, the nonstop tornado warnings at 3 a.m. the past couple of days? How are you doing, my friend? And have you made it through all of that?
Doing well. We have survived. It sounded there for a couple of minutes. We're out here in Mount Juliet, and we got one of the waves hit us pretty hard. It was very intense for a couple of minutes. Sounded like somebody was firing a machine gun at the front of my house. The hail was just pelting the window. We were all hunkered down in our safe space, and I'm just hoping, man, I hope I don't have some broken glass to repair in the morning. Not that I can repair broken glass. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it was a pretty intense moment for sure. But we're doing so far so good.
Yeah, love to hear it. Excited to get into the conversation today, talking about the top 30 visits here that the Titans have already have confirmed. A couple of them we already knew about, the top 4, of course, but some other guys that we've heard over the past week or two that I think give us a little bit more insight onto where the Titans may be headed when it comes to the draft evaluation overall, the process, where they're going to go. Good to see all of you guys here in the chat. Kenneth, yes, we are live. I can't believe it's that. I go on one vacation. We have one show that goes live on a Friday, and everybody's all up in arms. Good to see you, Eddie, saying what's good, lads. He says packed, pipe, a pint, and football. Let's get to having some fun. Jacob wants to take a different direction and say, let's talk about our feelings. Kenneth, yes, we are live here. Coach Will's also wanting to know that. Drew, happy Friday, fellas. Good to see you here. Eddie's saying Kenneth and Coach have been scarred. Let's talk about some football, potentially our feelings with Jacob, and also our lovely sponsors of this podcast, M.L.Rose Craft Beer and Burgers and Sinkers Beverages, are two lovely sponsors. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show, keeping it free to all of you every single week, twice a week. Make sure to check out one of M.L.Rose's 7 locations across the greater Nashville area. More on both of them later. And also, if you were not here on Tuesday, and I'm going to be saying it up until the actual event, a reminder, we have some official draft plans to announce, including our 2 draft shows on the weekend of the draft, including Thursday's live first round watch party from Sinkers Beverages headquarters. Come out. $30 for that ticket gets you Shotgun Willie's catered barbecue, all you can drink, live shows where you get to interact with us live, get to interact with everyone else there, fellow Titans fans, and it all goes towards the Our Kids Foundation. Come talk Titans, react to them with the first overall selection and the rest of that draft on Thursday. And then also Saturday is a post-draft Titans talk through, Q&A, off the record, whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll be having that again at Sinkers headquarters. All goes towards charity Our Kids. That ticket is $50. Once again, catered by Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, 5-flight bourbon tasting, along with whatever madness might come with that. Reminder, $30 for the Thursday night, $50 for the Saturday night. If you get them both, it's $70, a little bit of $10 off there. Excited to see as many of you guys there as possible. Links are in the description of this show, on the podcast feed, and in our YouTube channel bios. Excited to talk with you guys here today at those events.
I'm stoked, JT. I don't know if you've been hearing from people, but I've gotten a few messages from people saying that they've bought their tickets for Saturday or for Thursday. Had a few people asking about Friday too. It's so awesome, man. Like I don't know if you guys can tell, like you'll probably see me squinting quite a bit during this show. I'm at the stage of draft prep where my eyes are just twitching because I've just been staring at my screen for 8 hours a day for the last month straight at this point. So like I'm kind of like twitchy on edge, probably not as sharp as I should be broadcasting on a podcast, but I am starting to get a little bit excited about the actual draft events themselves because it's going to be a really fun Thursday through Saturday. We put in a lot of hard work for this event, and that is kind of the moment where we get to enjoy the fruits of our labor, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm eager to share that with you guys that are coming up as well. It's going to be a good time, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, especially if you've been following the Hot Read podcast. We've been doing those live events for the last 2-ish years. To be able to finally be able to do it live in person
Yeah.
with a football show and hang out with you guys while we're on stream and have some of those like in-person reactions along with the people that will be joining in the chat is going to be awesome. Super excited to do that. Eddie saying trying to get back in town for Saturday. That's going to be fun as well. Jacob saying the reactions if the Titans didn't take Cam Ward on that stream and in that room would be priceless. You know, I would be, you know, at this point, I'm okay with chaos, and certainly on that show it would be. But yes, links to all of that in the description. Things, announcements for Friday, as well as our content potentially on Saturday during day 3 of the draft, coming very, very soon. Ironing out those last couple of details. We'll get to those plans very shortly, but kind of following where Jacob said, the reactions if we didn't take Cam Ward. I want to start with that because Shedeur Sanders Pro Day was today, and it seems like it hasn't been a big thing, but I think it's worth talking about because Albert Breer earlier this morning, before Shedeur Sanders Pro Day, said the Titans have President of Football Ops Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Reggie McKenzie, Nick Holtz, Denard Wilson, and College Scouting Director Joe Salge in Boulder for Colorado's Pro Day. Brian Callahan will be there Wednesday with a lot of the same guys back for Shedeur Sanders' private workout. Most of that is basically the same, right? We knew that there was going to be a smaller contingent there, and it was a lot of names like Borgonzi, Nick Holtz, Denard Wilson. Those are guys who we knew were going to be there. Brian Callahan's still on schedule to not be there for his pro day, but the private workout. However, I think it is of note that adjustments have certainly been made here with, you know, when you go back to earlier this week or last week, we heard that, you know, Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan were not going to be there.
Right.
And so now that you see that, you know, if that was still the case where you have this gigantic contingent, you have Cam Ward's Pro Day where the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, is there meeting with Cam Ward. You have this big thing for a guy like Cam Ward, and then did not have guys like Brinker and Callahan at Shedeur Sanders, and that didn't change. I think that would all but confirm where we were going. However, the fact that there have been changes made, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but in your opinion, Stoney, does this move the needle at all? Is this them realizing that maybe the smoke screen, the fog machine needs to be a little bit more water or fog solution or whatever in the fog machine to make that a little bit more, up in the air, not as conclusive? Or do you think something has potentially actually changed? I know on Tuesday's show, we talked about at the owners meeting, Mike Borgonzi meeting with Joe Shane, Chad Brinker talking to Andrew Barry today. Like, is there something going on there that is worth keeping an eye on? Or is this more so just making more smoke for the pre-draft process?
I don't think anything has changed in their conviction on Cam Ward. But to your point, I'm glad you brought up the owners meeting thing, because I was going to say, like, it's convenient that, Mike Borgonzi and Joe Shane are talking, and now all of a sudden Chad Brinker's trying to get on a plane and get to Colorado's showcase. It's not a pro day, it's a showcase. And all of a sudden we're like doing our due diligence on Shedeur Sanders, and we, I'm just saying, like, I said it on Football and Other F Words last night, and I know that people are getting caught up in the Cam Ward craze, but I look at it, if I'm like a storyteller building a narrative, crafting a narrative, if I wanted to drive up the price of Cam Ward to make it look like we're sold on him, and if you want us to move off of this pick, you're going to have to give up the kingdom, I think this is the playbook you would run. I think exactly what they're doing is making it look like you're going to have to pry them away from Cam Ward. And to do that, it's going to take an offer that just blows them away. So there's that part that's still in the back of my mind that's just like, oh man, like I'm not ready to jump off that cliff just yet in the name of Cam Ward. I do think it's funny talking about the pro day itself that people are like, oh, wow, Shador can throw the ball really far. Like, look at the arm strength. And it's just a testament to like how bad the combine week was that it just shoved the discourse, shoved the collective opinion of Shador Sanders way down. Stock is low. He's not even a first round pick and all that. And now we're back to the pro day and everybody's like, whoa, this guy can throw the ball, when glimpses of that were on the tape to begin with. So it's funny to see the roller coaster that has been Shador's draft stock. And now we're just right back to where it started with the tape. Like, yes, this has been on the tape all along. I don't think anything's really fluctuated with him. So really interesting event.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think ultimately this is just, like Joe says, a perfect smokescreen for them to continue driving up that interest, make it a little bit more dramatic. We know that the NFL does not want their product, which has become one of the most popular offseason things in any sporting, in any sport at all. In the history of the world, like they want the intrigue to keep going, and so the NFL has to love that Chad Brinker is making his move to go up there and making a little bit of drama. But I do agree with you that at this point, it is right. It still is Cam, and I think now the big brain move here is that Coach Wills says, I think this was more of a Travis adjustment versus Shador, which is the big brain where Mike Borgonzi goes to the owner meeting, says, oh, Shane wants to come up. Okay, that means we move back to 3. Let's go take a look at this Travis Hunter guy. Denard, what do you think about this Travis Hunter guy? Tyke Tolbert, what do you think about this Travis Hunter guy? Like, that's the big brain long con play right there, which I don't think is very likely. I agree with you that it is just that, a smokescreen, but it is fun to think about sometimes. I think it is just them playing into the perfect blueprint on how to drive up interest in the pick, drive up the narrative, but at the same time, still being totally convicted on your guy. And I think, seeing more people, like seeing more of these prospects, getting to see them in person is never a bad thing, I think. Coach Wilson is basically a glutton for team trade back, loves the doubt that creeps in. It's always fun to think about. However,
the biggest brain take here is that they're there to scout LeJohntay Wester, Will Shepard, and Jimmy Horn Jr.
This is true. Yes.
Tyke Tolbert's there.
He is there.
Tyke Tolbert's there.
Listen, yesterday on the Football Show podcast with Nick Suss and Braden Gall, they were talking about late round wide receivers. And I, in the chat, said future punt returner of the Tennessee Titans, LeJohntay Wester. I just want to say it's out there. I just want to say it's out there.
Yeah.
But that's all I really had to say. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I like that Brian Callahan will still be there for the workout later this week, or I guess next week, early next week. I think it's always good to see more of these guys still keep in contact with guys like Andrew Berry, Joe Shane, all of those GMs, and just keep the pulse on what everybody else is thinking. But ultimately, I don't think this changes anything. And if it does, the writing was on the wall, I guess. I guess we could say that in hindsight, it was 2020 and they still got us. But at this point, I'm still of the opinion that Cam Ward will be the first overall pick.
That's I just can't fathom like how far we've leaned into Cam Ward collectively as a fan base. How far we've leaned into Cam Ward, of what the reaction is going to be if they move back to 3, draft Shador Sanders, and pick up like 3 or 4 more picks. Like, I'm very curious to see what the reaction is going to be.
It would be the most usual suspects ending to a NFL draft process ever. Like, Shador was there all along. Like, it was him all along. Kenneth, he thinks his face will melt, which is a good transition to Adam's question here, saying, are we streaming the whole round draft or just going to be live at the event? We will be on the clock, first of all, with the rest of the football show guys for the first overall pick. However, that's not all we're doing. Like at that event, we will be live for the entirety of the first round, giving you analysis of all those guys, what other teams may be thinking, just talking ball, talking about the first round of the draft. We'll be taking a lot more breaks in there to be around and with you guys who are at the event. So if you want to be in contact and talking ball with us for the entire time, it gives you some incentive to be there at the event. But we will be live for the entire first round, the entirety of second and third round, and all of day 3. Don't worry. My face and Stoney's face will be on a screen on a live stream somewhere for every single round of the draft that weekend. Do not worry. And then also afterwards on Saturday too. Like, it is going to be a absolutely crazy weekend, and cannot wait to be there with you guys, either in person or virtually. Going to be super fun, I think.
It's gonna be a party. I can't wait. I'm gonna be drunk on air again.
Hey, the some of the best moments from our live streams come with that. The real Hot Read podcast people know that Easton Freeze putting his pizza on his shoe or just juggling on stream are some of the reasons why draft day content is the best. We can talk about more of that later, but I do want to get into some of these top 30 visits and talk about top 30 visits in general, because I do think over the past couple of years, but last year specifically, they can be more telling about a team's I was crashing out last year, especially over guys like who was I crashing out about the most? I feel like now I'm getting off. T'Vondre Sweat was a very one. The refrigerator, Jaquan Jackson's phallic-like looking mock draftable. It's all there. It's going to be so much fun. Top 30 visits, though, I do think can be a very important indicator of a team, where a team wants to go in the draft. When you look at who the Titans, now, of course, a different set of people at the helm, that being Rand Carthon, but ultimately Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker were there and around the room and the thought process. When you look at who some of the guys that they brought in, Chris Abrams-Drain, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., McKinley Jackson, Joe Alt, Marshawn Lloyd, Roman Wilson, Junior Colson, Rasheen Ali, Kalen Carson, J.C. Latham, Malik Neighbors, and T'Vondre Sweat. There are out of those 11-ish guys, there are 3 Tennessee Titans now. Mm-hmm. And I think that list that I just listed off there was pretty much, I believe, almost a year ago to the day. That's the confirmed 30 visits that we had. So we'll hear more as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. But as of right now, the top 30 visits that we do know of are Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Femi Oladejo from UCLA, Cameron Jackson from Florida, Charles Grant of William & Mary, Caleb Johnson of Iowa, Terrence Ferguson of Oregon, Dante Thornton of Tennessee, Kyle Williams of Washington State, and Isaiah Bond of Texas. Those guys in there, of course, Cam Ward, we presume is going to be a Tennessee Titan. But I do think that when you look at that list, I think there's already another Tennessee Titan on that very, very short list, in my opinion. When you look at how they're trying to, attack this draft from different positions, I think that there's a really good chance a guy like Isaiah Bond, Kyle Williams, Deontay Thornton, Caleb Johnson, and Terrence Ferguson, one of those guys is a Tennessee Titan when it comes to draft weekend. And so I think, Stoney, in your opinion, out of those position groups, is there one more important than wide receiver there that is very telling for what the Titans are trying to do with their draft kind of plan?
So it's kind of crazy. Like, we come on here and we talk about how bad this team needs wide receiver help and they need edge help. And I will give credit to our buddy Zach Lyons of Cover 2 Football and Other F Words and Stacking the Inbox for compiling the data. They have had 9 touch points with wide receivers so far, by far the most of any position. The second most is edge with 5 touch points. Now, that's not just the 30 visits, but formal combine interviews, pro day meetings, private workouts, virtual meetings, local visits, all of that is combined. 9 for receiver, 5 for edge, and third is going to be quarterback, and that is obviously a lot of Cam Ward. So I do think it's telling that they are sniffing around this wide receiver group. There seems to be a common thread between a lot of these guys too. They are sniffing around for speed, something that they need desperately to inject in this passing game. It makes a lot of sense getting connected with this wide receiver group and then getting connected with this edge group.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. More so, I feel like as we get more and more, or closer and closer, I should say, to the actual week of the draft, we'll hear more of these 30 visits for about
Mm-hmm.
edge rushers, right? I think the only visit, which I'd be fine with if you were able to get him in the fourth, Femi Oladejo, like I'm good with that. I'd say that one is the guy they liked. I have a lot of confidence in them if they like him so much that they brought him in for a 30 visit and they draft him there. Like I'm good with that. However, I think it's interesting to see how wide they're casting that net at wide receiver, because it's a tricky class, I think, to really evaluate, especially where the Titans have their picks right now, right? At 35, a guy like Dante Thornton, Kyle Williams, or Isaiah Bond is probably not where you want to take that guy. That's a little too pricey. However, you're able to trade back and you're starting to look at some of those guys, a guy like Dante Thornton, maybe in the fifth, but like a Kyle Williams or Isaiah Bond in the late third, early fourth. That's where I think you start to see those guys. That's where they want to target them. And I think it's important to bring those guys in, especially as we talk about some of these wide receivers here, especially Isaiah Bond, because I think there's a very big connection you can make between this year's draft class and last year's draft class, in the sense that they have been doing a lot of digging on Isaiah Bond, who is a guy who has character concerns, maybe not the same character concerns in the range, in the realm of a Luther Burden, but perhaps the character concerns of a Jermaine Burton. Maybe not maybe not guys or outside pressures impacting his game, but more so the person himself. Like, from what I've heard, obviously, there have been scouts who have said Isaiah Bond's on-field and locker room culture is seriously in flux. Like, that is a big question. And I've even heard like it has rivaled potentially Jermaine Burton's, and we saw how that has worked out for them, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you see them doing these character, and there's not anything like, I know I got a bunch of questions like, what exactly are these character concerns? It's nothing major like a Tavondre Sweat DUI last year, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at the player, a guy who went to Alabama, then transferred to Texas, had some injury history, and was inconsistent at times, but at 5'11", 180, is a guy who has maybe some of the best play speed in the class, is a guy who's not afraid to go up there and catch the ball, is not afraid to use his body and get to the catch point. A guy who, after the catch, his yak ability is bar none to a lot of these guys in the class. He's a guy worth sniffing around to see if it truly is along the lines of that Jermaine Burton type-esque character concerns, or if there's something else to it. We've heard a lot of potential links to this version's Tyreek Hill, like this team's Tyreek Hill, right? And I think that is one of the biggest top 30 visits that I think could tell the tale of a Titans draft. Because when you look at you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Stoney, but when you look at the talent, like, this is a guy who, based on those traits alone, the speed, the catch radius, the after the catch, this is a guy who probably should fall no less than a late second round player. But but the character concerns have him right now feeling like he could be there at 103 with the first pick of the fourth round.
Yeah, man. And it's really crazy if you go back and look at some of the preseason mock drafts, like back from last summer. People had him as like a top 5, top 10 pick. Like, this was a guy that was going to be the cream of the wide receiving crop, and it didn't really pan out that way. I think it's interesting about Isaiah Bond. Why I particularly perk up when I hear that he had a 30 visit is because they also talked to him in a formal combine interview as well. So they are doing some due diligence on him. It's noteworthy because if you look at Mike Borgonzi, the track record of the Kansas City Chiefs while Mike Borgonzi was working out there, They certainly weren't afraid to grab a guy that had some character concerns, and I do think that Hurricane Lou makes a pretty important distinction in the chat as well. That there is definitely a difference in just being an asshole versus some Tyreek Hill kind of stuff. And so if you get in there and you realize like it is just kind of attitude, it is just kind of like diva mentality sort of thing. I think you probably feel like you could work with it because of the pure blazing speed and that being such a dire need for you right now. It's something we've talked about before is like if you only have 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, you're not going to be able to get everything that you need with those 2 picks. So you do have to either get kind of creative to figure out how to check those needs off the list, or you have to be willing to kind of let your guard down a little bit, let your standards down a little bit, and maybe roll the dice and take a risk on a guy like Isaiah Bond. From what I'm hearing, I mean, it is like I would echo what you say. It's just a lot of attitude stuff, like nothing criminal or anything like that. And so they're going to do their due diligence because he provides a solution, a creative solution for something that they need on their offense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We've talked about the slot need, but I think you've brought up even more. You brought up the need maybe for an X guy who can be that downfield threat, that separator.
Sure.
And I think when you look at a guy like Isaiah Bond, he may be outside of the quarterbacks being Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. He's maybe the guy, Bond, they've done the most due diligence on. And I think that's noteworthy because when you see that kind of stuff start to come out, that they keep coming back to this guy, they keep trying to find out more and more. That's what really signals to me that this is a guy that I think myself, you Titans fans should all be looking for when it comes to those 3 days at the end of April. Like, this is a guy that if he's still on the board could be where the Titans may be thinking.
Yeah, I would say be on alert for sure because it seems to fit the profile of need, track record of taking guys like this, and the fact that they're doing their homework on him.
Yeah. And now a lot of it, I don't want to say like if they take him in the 3rd or if they move up, like that 35th pick, until we see what they do with it, I feel like it's hard to not just like play out scenarios. So like, let's just say that another team, because of where they trade out, or if they stay at 35, they don't end up landing a guy like Bond because another team, just like the Titans, feel like they can work with those concerns and work with a speedy player like that. There's some other guys that they've sniffed around, being Deontay Thornton from Tennessee. He's another intriguing speed guy who they have a confirmed visit with that I think you probably can get for a little bit less of a price than an Isaiah Bond, a guy that you can probably find in the late 4th, early 5th round that could be that answer as well.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to Thornton yet. Honestly, pretty low on my priority list until the Titans announced that they were visiting him. And I'm just like, well, damn, now I got to prioritize Dante Thornton. He's on my list for the next week, but I haven't watched a whole lot of him. But again, like you talk about similar profiles, like it kind of feels in a way like they're telegraphing their needs with this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then of course you have guys like Kyle Williams, who our buddy Easton Freeze did some good work to get that confirmed, that they will bring in Kyle Williams for a visit next week. Like you guys said, it's a great, it checks a lot of boxes, right? One, Kyle Williams, the player himself, I think is a very intriguing fit for the Titans based on his ability to play in the slot, his separation ability, his ability to beat man coverage. He's a guy that I think would slot in well to Callahan's offense, despite whoever may be throwing him the ball. 2, he is Cam Ward's former teammate, the guy that they, for all intensive purposes, are going to draft right now at the 101. So another opportunity to talk to another player about Cam, get to learn about him from a teammate's perspective. And 3, this is a guy that I think can give you some more insight on the wide receiver position as a whole. He's a guy who I think has the skill set, right, to maybe be a top 65 player, but we still aren't there, I think, in sense of having him as that day 2 option, right? Like, I think there's a lot of media buzz, but at the same time, I think it's a great way to gauge where other teams may be looking at a guy like Kyle Williams. Can you still feel good about him being there at 103? Is this telling you that maybe if we really like this guy, does that give us more reason to trade back from 35? Because once again, like we've been saying, Kyle Williams at 35 is super rich. Like that would make me crash out maybe as much as them not going with a guy like Cam Ward.
Yeah. So a couple of things. They do have a flurry of day 3 picks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. I tend to think that 35 is too rich for Kyle Williams, but by the same token, like if he has the impact on your offense that you think he can have, if he's anything remotely as dominant as he was at Washington State, is it really a bad pick to add that spark plug to your passing game? I don't know. I could probably be talked into Kyle Williams at 35, honestly. But if they're not thinking, well, he's going to be there in the 4th, which it looks highly unlikely based on where his stock is heading. You think about all those picks, the 6 picks that they have on day 3 right now. Could they package a few to actually trade up to get Kyle Williams if he starts to slide in the 3rd round? I think that is a potential option. I don't know that they'd want to mortgage draft picks, but man, that would be a hell of a player if he starts falling into the 80s or 90s or something like that. I'd be kicking the tires on it. But I love the prospect. This is a guy that like seems to hit top speed from the first step that he takes. It's crazy. The release packages, the way he uses his entire body to sell his breaks, like DBs bite really hard on the hand movement, the foot movement, the head movement, all of it. Very sudden, changing direction, and can really accelerate like it's nothing, man. This is a speed guy that doesn't offer you a whole lot in the way of power, but damn, who cares when you can run like that and move like that?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Eddie also saying, the biggest thing that we didn't talk about, and I think this is one of the most important things. They have to bring in Kyle Williams to see if he went to Cam's 21st birthday party. You have to, right? You have
of course.
Coach Wills also brings up, all jokes aside, do you think do you ask Cam what he thinks of those guys or any guys in the draft? I think you have to, right? Like at that point, I think it's all about gathering more information with these guys.
Exactly what I was going to say. Like anywhere that you can get information for free, take it, build your report, be as thorough as possible.
Yeah. And so that's where the top 30 visits can kind of tell you where the Titans may be thinking with their guys. It seems like they're targeting a guy like Kyle Williams because of the fit, but then they're also sniffing around the speedy wide receiver market. And I think those are the guys that you really have to target on day 2 and day 3 if you're a Titans fan, to start looking at like these could be potential options for the Tennessee Titans. Now, before we move on to potential running back, tight end options, John saying Cam a lock because of a camera crew. Sir gets the same exact treatment. Adam saying Paul said camera crew went today, but won't get talked about because it's not all signs point to Cam. Real quick, I just want to say something about camera crews. Like, if you're worried about the Titans camera crew going to someone's pro day, like the Titans camera crew was at freaking name any offensive lineman at, like, they were at Josh Connerly's like availability at the combine. They're at Quinn Ewer's availability. Like they're everywhere. They're at the Senior Bowl looking at like taking specific shots of Devin Neal. Like, just because they're there doesn't mean like that it means that's who they're going with, right? Like I don't think that is anything I would put stock into. For most part, it's B-roll for their production, because when they get interviews with Borgonzi and they get interviews with Callahan or whatever at these sites, they end up using that as footage to put in their produced things. I don't think it's we're building a video of how we took the number 1 pick. Like it's just Titans media doing Titans media. Like I don't think that's something I would put too much stock into, but maybe that's just me, in my opinion. We can get into the tight ends and running backs here, because there are 2 that the Titans are meeting with their top 30s confirmed so far that I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about those two positions. But before we get into that, have to thank our wonderful sponsor, M.L.Rose Craft Beer and Burger, 7 locations in the greater Nashville area, including Capitol View, Franklin, Gallatin, Melrose 8th Ave, Mount Juliet, Sylvan Park, and an 8th location coming soon to East Nashville near Inglewood. Got to check them out because they have the best selection of beer and food to hang out with friends, watch a game, go out for a dinner with your family. Simply some of the best food I've had here in Nashville when it comes to a burger restaurant, because 25 beers on tap. Their appetizers are insane. The pretzel bites, the Nashville hot cheese curds, their craft burgers, including Stoney. I know we didn't know what the burger of the month was for April. We didn't know about it on Tuesday's show, and I said we would do some digging and find out. We've learned now, and I've got to say, this is one that you're gonna have to try out. It's called the Thick Boy Burger, which I sent it to you, and I know you said back, "Wow, they named the burger after Stoney, the Thick Boy Burger with provolone cheese, fried pickles." It looks like a thick boy, and I'm so excited to try it this weekend when I head out to M.L.Rose, and you should too. Thank you to M.L.Rose for sponsoring the show. Also, reminder, as we're here, we are doing live shows on Thursday night of the draft round 1, and then a show post-draft on Saturday night at Sinkers Beverages HQ. All the proceeds go to the Our Kids Foundation, helping out. Do it for the children. Come out, drink some beer, eat some food catered by Shotgun Willie's, and talk Titans to help the kids of Nashville. Links to all of those good things, including where to find the closest M.L.Rose to you, in our description down below. All right, Stoney, we can talk about the running backs and the tight ends, because that's what we were saying. You know, we talk about how important these top 30 visits are. And also, let's talk about some of the running back and tight end targets that the Titans could be looking at on day 3 of the draft. And I say that because, in your opinion, let's say they trade back from 35, they pick up a late second and somewhere in the middle of the third. Your reaction if they were to use that 3rd round pick on a running back or tight end would be what?
If it were a running back, I would not be surprised. I kind of feel like this team is, I think they're looking for a very specific type of running back. I think there is some logic behind drafting a running back. I think it may even surprise some people if they draft a running back pretty high. So I wouldn't necessarily be that surprised if they took a running back in the 3rd round in a trade down situation. I would be surprised if they were to take a tight end, because I think this class is Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and then a second tier below is Elijah Arroyo. And then everybody else kind of feels like a specialist. So if you need a very particular thing from a tight end, I think there's a guy that you're going to be able to get on day 3 of the draft. Like we talked about on your mock draft, Jackson Hall's the big the Y tight end that's basically like a 6th offensive lineman. Makes a lot of sense to fill the Nick Vannett role. I think, you know, if you want to go with a receiving option, a guy like Harold Fannin Jr., I'm not as high on him as some are, but I'm also not as low on him as some are either. But that's the territory you're kind of getting into. And I just don't know that the value is there for a 3rd pick. So I would be very surprised if they went tight end anywhere before like the last couple of rounds.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think I'd be surprised by a third round 3 running back, or even maybe an early round 4 running back. Although maybe that's where the signs are pointing to, because the Titans have met with Iowa's running back Caleb Johnson. 6 foot 225. He has the build of the bruiser type running back that Brian Callahan might want for this offense. You look at some of those guys, and I know you have some thoughts on Caleb Johnson, because as you look at this class, right? You look at the top, right? It's Ashton Genty, Amarian Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins fits in somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But then maybe it's just the influx of fantasy football analysts on Twitter timelines, but I feel like this class is deep if you want to select a guy on day 3 or even in UDFA territory. However, like there's not, I don't think there's any reason where guys like Caleb Johnson, Damian Martinez, and Ollie Gordon maybe find themselves going in the top 75 along with those other 4, right? I think this class may be getting a little bit overblown in some aspects.
I don't think it's the class. I think it's just Caleb Johnson.
Oh, okay.
So my thing with Caleb Johnson is that you watch the tape and the skill set doesn't really line up with where draft media has him. Like, we've seen Caleb Johnson mocked in the first before. We've seen him like consistently considered around round 2 kind of guy. And I just don't think the tape or the skill set lines up with that. And then when the Titans met with him, I had this thought like, oh, how is this fan base going to react if they spend 35 on a running back? Because that's probably what it's going to take to get Caleb Johnson. And then after digging into the tape and I finished my eval on Caleb Johnson earlier this week, I kind of thought maybe I've got it backwards, and it's not that it would take a premium pick to get Caleb Johnson, but maybe it's actually that the NFL itself is a lot lower on Caleb Johnson than draft media is. And maybe the Titans are thinking he's probably going to be there in the 4th round and could be an option for us. Listen, he's built like a brick shithouse. He has the frame. He has the element of power. He's a hard-nosed straight line runner, but man, there's just not a lot of twitch to him. And he was running through a lot of wide open holes in Iowa. And I just, to be as big and powerful as he is, I felt like he came down on first contact quite a bit in the open field. I think guys could run him down from behind. And so you need him to pick up like 2 yards on 3rd and 2, or you need him to pick up 1 on a 4th and 1. That's all well and good, but that is not a skill set that goes in the 2nd round. And so that's why I feel like something's off with the ratings here. And I kind of feel like the NFL might actually be a little bit lower on him than the draft media has been throughout this process. I'm not saying that I'm not a fan, right? I just want to adjust the expectations appropriately. And for me, I would much rather have Damian Martinez late in the draft than I would. And I do think Martinez offers more upside as well than I would, have Caleb Johnson with where it's going to take him.
Yeah. You talk about a guy who as well did not exactly have the catching ability that you would want in a 3-down back, maybe. I think he does serve his purpose, but I'm with you that I think with that first pick in the 4th round, if regardless of trade back, right? Like, let's just talk about the 103 in a vacuum. Caleb Johnson would be that would make sense to me. Like, this is a guy who you're planning for a long-term future post maybe Tony Pollard, because like we said on Friday's show, and Team Ramrod just put in here, he says Galaxy Brain pair Ward with Jalen Rivers. Go listen to, I guess, Tuesday's show, I should say. You might be in for a surprise there on my mock draft 2.0. But, we talked about on Tuesday with some of these running backs, with them selecting one. Tony Pollard's not getting any younger. It's getting late. It's getting real late for Tyjae Spears to turn into a 3-down guy with how many injuries he sustains. There is a need for a running back. And if you're able to take one there at 103, like a guy like Caleb Johnson, or even like you said, a Damian Martinez or an Ollie Gordon there, like in the 4th round, like I think that's worth it.
I kind of feel like the writing is on the wall with Tyjae Spears, and I'm a big fan of his. I was a proponent of his drafting during his class. I really liked the pick, but when you look at, he basically has no knees, right? The issue was with the ACLs or whatever. He doesn't have any ligaments in his knees. And at the time we're like, hey, it's not a big deal. But then you look at the guys that had similar paths before him, and they had retired early, they wore down early, that sort of thing. This isn't even factoring in the sorry, my voice is a little rough because I blew out my throat singing Nickelback in the shower earlier. when you look at like where he's at in the process, like 2 years with the injuries that he's had, you look at his usage, how like what the coaches tell you they feel about him by how they used him on the field. I was kind of critical. It's like, man, they need to get him on the field more than they actually did. But if that's a sign of how they feel about him, maybe they're not as high on Tyjae Spears as we are. And maybe that clock is starting to tick a little bit on the knees and the injury history. And it's not so much about finding a thumper to be the third back, but maybe they just want, maybe they're starting to think about a contingency plan because they don't know if they can count on Spears to stay healthy. And they think maybe Father Time is coming for Tony Pollard too. Like I'm telling you, I think there's a scenario where running back is a much more pressing need than people are thinking about right now.
Yeah, Derek, and speaking of, it's Derek says they couldn't have waterboarded that information out of him, Stoney, when it comes to Nickelback. I am no I guess stranger to wanting to belt out some good tunes in the shower. Nickelback.
People need to get over the Nickelback hate. All right. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They write catchy songs that people enjoy. They've made a ton of money. That's the dream. Like anybody that's just hating on Nickelback is envious. Are they my favorite band? No, absolutely not. But I'm working on an impression for This Is How You Remind Me for karaoke. And it just, I do a lot of screaming in it. It's really intensive, and so it just got to me a little bit. I haven't hydrated properly, coated my throat. I need to get the honey out.
Yeah, and that's okay. But Joe also with a very black and white type of viewpoint here, where he says, "Plus, Tyjae Spears is a Rand guy, so I'll believe anything negative about him." Which I don't want to like. There are good picks in Rand Carthon's short stint as GM. However, like that between that and going with a guy like Jaquan Jackson, who, looking at it a year now removed, like Tyjae Spears had so much influence on that pick. Like it is fair to say that they're looking at life post Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. And so in round 4, Caleb Johnson, we talked about Ollie Gordon on Tuesday. I got him in the 6th. I'm starting to believe that maybe he won't be there past like the 5th round. So Ollie Gordon, Caleb Johnson, those guys in the 4th, I think are worth it. Damian Martinez, as I think Drew just said here, quite possibly the most underrated guy in this class, popped at the Senior Bowl, was one of my favorite running backs there, along with Devin Neal. 5'11", 226. Like, he's not 6 foot, but 226. Like, that's one of the heavier running backs in the class. I think he has, unlike maybe Caleb Johnson, dude's got some agility to him at that size. And I think he has more of the receiving qualities that you want in a 3-down back. I think he's a great pass blocker. He looked really, really good at the Senior Bowl. He's a guy that I think we talk about Jalen Rivers, pairing him there, pairing Elijah Arroyo with Cam Ward, pairing Kyle Williams with Kyle Ward or Cam Ward. What about Damian Martinez, pairing him with Cam Ward, a guy in that backfield could do numbers for the Tennessee Titans offense?
I'm trying not to get too excited about Damian Martinez, but he's got some really good tape, man. I mean, like a big, long, powerful back, but he's got some moves, man. He's got a gnarly jump cut that he can change direction, hit the hole. Patient vision. I think he's pretty patient, waits for the hole to open up before crashing into the line. There's a lot of backs in this class that I jotted that down. I'm like, they're just running into traffic and hoping to bull through. But Martinez has that sort of knack for just waiting for the sea to part, so to speak, before taking off. Has some acceleration, really smooth lateral movement, and just has a tendency to jump cut, get outside, and head north, and just plant his foot in the ground and take off. Has some acceleration, really good, versatile back.
Yeah, I agree with all of what you just said. Like, one of my favorite running backs in the class, and I'm surprised he doesn't get more recognition than he does. And it's such a top-heavy class. Yeah, such a top-heavy class. But I do like also, side note, Coach Will's take here where he says Tony Pollard was last year's Dan Moore, gave the team some time to find the guy. I think that's a really smart take there.
Yeah.
I think I like that. Is there any other running back that you would feel good about in the 4th? Like Caleb Johnson, I would get because of the top 30 visit. Damian Martinez checks all the boxes. I think Ollie Gordon as a 3-down, more of a thumper, maybe doesn't have the versatility of a guy like Damian Martinez, but once again, caught 30 balls on 38 targets, had 0 drops last season. Is there any guy outside of maybe those 3 that you feel that you would feel good about in the 4th round for the Tennessee Titans?
So it might be a little early, but I wanna mention Jaden Blue here because they did have a formal combine interview with him. That's the kid out of Texas. Run pass threat kind of guy. Not really an element of power. I think there are some ball security issues with Blue that have kind of pushed him down in a stacked, loaded class. But I do kind of see the vision with him, an elusive kind of guy, a speedy kind of guy that can run a wheel route, sneak wide open and catch the ball, secure it. Had some really good, like, over the shoulder ball tracking catches from that route, particularly out of the backfield. Now, obviously it's a case where he's not like taking on man coverage. It's a slippery kind of route where the defense just kind of loses track of the fact that, oh, here comes the running back squirting out on a rail route and nobody's on him. So it's not like a contested catch or anything, but I think he's a pretty smooth, speedy kind of player. And it kind of, what's interesting about their interest in him to me is that this narrative has been out there that, oh, they want a Caleb Johnson, right? They re-signed Julius Chestnut. They need like a powerful guy that can chew up the short yardage. That's not Jaden Blue. So it might be a little tip of the hand here to say, oh, we just need to find the next guy. We need to find a guy that can make plays at the position. And so I think it's interesting that they're sniffing around here him. At this point here in the 4th, I don't know that he's going to be in consideration there. Probably more of a 5th, 6th type of guy. But I do like the skill set that he adds.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. When we're looking at the 5th or 6th or 7th round, is there anybody that really stands out to you? I think if you're looking at another thumper who can potentially be that 3-down guy, I don't think we give Devin Neal enough credit for that at 5'11", 220. I like his skill set being more of an all-around guy for what you're paying at maybe the 5th or 6th round price point. Maybe he doesn't possess that upside of a guy like Damian Martinez, Ollie Gordon, or Caleb Johnson. But I think, I think he could be an intriguing option. Kyle Monagai is another one that I think serves. The guy from Rutgers is another interesting one. And then LaQuint Allen, I think when you're looking at round 7-ish, like that's another guy that, like you said, the tipping of your hand, maybe not the most, he's a former wide receiver, maybe plays more of that Tyjae Spears role with your knees intact. 6 foot 207. Like those are some of the guys I'm looking at in round 5, 6, 7, or maybe even UDFA that I think could be potential fits for a post Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears world.
Yeah, let's go ahead and Drew, get your Jaquindon Jackson eval in the chat and we will share it. We will have a Jaquindon Jackson moment on this show. I have not watched him yet, but I have had somebody else separate from Drew DM me on Twitter about Jaquindon Jackson. And I'm like, okay, you guys are just going to, I'm going to make time. I'm going to tell my wife I can't go to date night because I got to watch Jaquindon Jackson, whatever it takes to get him into the draft guide. I think I'm going to have to do it, but I haven't watched him just yet. There are a ton of guys late in this draft. Like, I mean, Woody Marks, LaQuint Allen, RJ Harvey.
Like even like the guy that doesn't get enough credit, like Kalel Mullings as well, I think has some, he's a team first guy. Like the locker room presence that a guy like Mullings, from what I've heard, could bring to a locker room is also like worth noting.
And you're looking at like Marcus Yarns out of Delaware, Brashard Smith out of SMU. I just wrapped up Trevor Etienne. I think Trevor Etienne is a pretty underrated guy too. No real like power and drive for him. And he is kind of another one of these like run receive kind of threats, but he's a really shifty guy, kind of small, shrinks through holes, that sort of deal. Like there's a ton of guys, if they're just looking for playmakers, that make a lot of sense. Okay, we've got the Jaquindon Jackson eval from Drew.
He says well above average movement skills for 230 pounds, bruising runner with a low pad level, violent and pass protection, patient runner with good vision and good contact balance. I think if you're playing at 230, you definitely have to be some of those things. And the fact that he's able to do that above average, according to Drew, like worth a UDFA look. Like that's a guy I feel like, continues to seem like going under the radar on a lot of mocks. So let me just pull up the consensus draft board here and see where a Jaquindon Jackson even falls. 283 on the consensus the consensus big board from Arkansas. This a guy I could see them absolutely looking at as a UDFA.
Yeah, and Joe brings up Corey Kiner out of Cincinnati. That's another name, guy that's got a little bit of juice to him. Like I'm telling you, man, like this running back class is as loaded of a group as I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and I think to conclude on the running backs, right? Caleb Johnson, Jaden Blue, two guys that potentially, you could see them look at in the 4th or 5th, like
because they've met with them.
Yes, exactly, right?
Yeah.
There are some guys who I think wouldn't be a surprise in round 4, because I feel like, as we've talked it out on the show, there is a real possibility that the Titans are planning for life beyond Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. And so I think it's a pretty good bet to say that they take a running back with one of their 6 picks on day 3, or even in UDFA. The one where we can move to end the show here is the and as Callahan says, where's Caleb Johnson projected to go? Let me pull that up. Caleb Johnson right now on the consensus big boards is 62. So like you said, there's so much fluctuation. Like his peak currently on the consensus big board is 42. Like there is talk about him going 1st round. There's talk about him being an early 2nd, all the way down to I think on the PFF boards, I think he's around like 90 or something like that. Like there's a lot of different movement for a guy like Caleb Johnson. However, that's not just the other unpopular skill position that the Titans, I guess not unpopular, but unsexy skill position that the Titans have been looking around. And that is the tight end group, with the Titans really curiously, this is one that sticks out to me, meeting with a guy like Terrence Ferguson.
Yeah.
Like you said, I would agree with you that a tight end before day 3 is really, really rich, unless somehow you're at 35 and a guy like Colston Loveland is there. Like that gets me excited. That wakes me up in the morning. That I would be super okay with. However, I don't think there's a chance that could happen.
I don't know. He's another guy that I feel like the evaluations are kind of all over the board. Absolutely deserving of a 1st round pick in this class specifically. Absolutely. But I don't think I would be surprised to see him fall to 35. And the thing that kind of piques my interest about Colston Loveland and the Titans is because I watched that Michigan offense, and man, there is some untapped potential as a pass catcher. But I really got fired up watching them pull Colston Loveland and have him run blocking on counter plays. And when I look at this offense that the Titans run, like they don't really have a guy that they can rely on in the tight end 1 spot that can do both, right? Like they have guys, a stable of guys that can specialize. Chigakonkwo is a very good pass catcher. Get him in the open field. We know what he's capable of. Nick Vanette was the bruiser blocker. And I think Josh Wiley, the Josh Wiley tight end 1 agenda died pretty early in last season.
Everyone got mad at me. The Josh Wiley agenda died when they made that pick, and I'll stand by that. As a fellow Cincinnati native, I'm sorry, Josh, if you're watching, but I doubt you are. Sorry.
So I could see if they were just like, you know what, if we get this one guy in Colston Loveland, we are going to upgrade our blocking tight end and we're going to upgrade our receiving tight end. And if the bottom line is, hey, you make the run game run more efficiently and you offer a threat in the passing game, I don't know, man. Maybe it's the G&T talking, but I feel like there's a world where Colston Loveland at 35 makes sense.
I think that you would get no gripes from me. I like Team Ramrod in the chat here, just saying Willie Lampkin for any position. He's pounding the table
I
for
love it.
Willie
I love
Lampkin
it.
as running back, Willie Lampkin for tight end pulls. But the Titans have met with Terrence Ferguson,
Yeah.
a guy who currently on the consensus board, let me look, I believe is right outside the top 100. He's 99th on the top, on the consensus big board. A guy who could very much be in play there at 103. He's met with them. He does bring, for his size, 6'5", 255. He looks a lot leaner than that size, but is a good inline blocker. Maybe not the most developed pass catcher, but I think there is some ability there to develop and to maybe speed up this tight ends. Maybe we have to have some revisionist history here, where I'm looking at just from the consensus big board from a lot of different places. I'm just looking at the names in general of guys I've watched, like for the Titans specifically. On day 3, there is 3 guys that I would feel good about, like if they were to select them somewhere, like Terrence Ferguson, Jackson Hawes, who I had in my mock draft on Tuesday, and then maybe taking a flyer on the run blocking ability or the blocking ability of a Jake Brenningstool. Like outside of that, man, like there's not anything that really gets me excited on day 3 for tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jackson Hall's, and specifically when we talk about what he can bring for this team. I like Terrence Ferguson. He's ripped. I mean, you're gonna break your wrist if you hit his abs with a baseball bat. That kind of tightness.
Yeah.
I long arms, like long frame, stretched out. He can catch the ball away from his body. Those sorts of things. I feel like on the tape, he had a really good Senior Bowl and really impressed me, really raised his stock. But then you kind of go to the tape, and I feel like he has a lot of whiffs as a blocker. I think he has some sloppy technique. Like there's some stuff that he's got to clean up, but I think the frame is intriguing. The potential to develop as a pass catcher. I don't think he was particularly used in explosive fashion, or I'll put it this way. I don't think he was used at Oregon in a way that really leveraged and utilized his athleticism to its full potential. So I think there is a higher ceiling there with Ferguson. You got to get to work with a little bit. And he probably is, if you can iron those things out, I think he probably is a pretty good complete overall tight end prospect, but there's a ways to go with him. I like Jackson Hall's quite a bit. I mean, he blocks with violence in his heart. You love that. He takes pride in it. That's the kind of guy that you want out there clearing the way. If Elijah Arroyo were to fall because of, maybe the injury concerns or something like that, I think he's like sneaky tight end 3 in this class because he does a lot of things well. But it's just not, to me, it's not a class that inspires a lot of confidence. I think you're looking at your offense, you're looking at your personnel, and you're saying we need a tight end that can really block. Okay, we can get that guy in round 6, so let's go do it there.
Yeah, I agree. Out of the tight ends that really intrigued me on day 3, like Terrence Ferguson is the only guy who I think has the potential to have the versatility of being a pass catcher and being a plus inline blocker. Drew says Terrence Ferguson is a crazy good inline pass protector, best in this class in his opinion. Like him versus a guy like Hawes, who I think is also up there, worthy of that conversation. Like maybe you give the edge to a Terrence Ferguson because he has that potential to develop into a stud pass catcher. But bottom line, like he's the guy I have my name. I have circled. I have Jackson Hawes circled just because I think he does the dirty work for you that the Titans could really use, but nobody else really on day 3 like excites me.
Yeah, I haven't wrapped up my eval on Gavin Bartholomew out of Pitt, but I felt like I was impressed by him at the Senior Bowl. I thought he blocked with pretty good foot drive, pretty smooth in the open field. But again, you're getting to guys that you just wonder what the upside is.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And so I think that wraps up our discussion on the topics for the running backs and tight ends that the Titans could potentially look at. And that does it for our show today. Thank you guys all for being here. Good to see you all here in the chat. Thank you, of course, to our sponsors, M.L.Rose and Sinkers. Ooh, that's a big brain take before I get out of here. Trade for Luke Musgrave, says Callahan. Drew also says Prescorn out of Ole Miss could be a solid late day 3 option 2. Really nice second level blocker in space. Listen, the only reason I know who Caden Prescorn is because of his wife and their son on TikTok. I see them all the time. They have a good TikTok page, so I know him from there.
I can't even believe, I don't know if it's Dupree or Dipper. Zach says Dipper, I say Dupree, but CJ Dupree out of Alabama, I'm like absurdly high on him. And I can't believe I completely forgot to mention him, but I think he's really good, clean blocker.
That's your one more thing for today, though.
Yeah, some untapped potential as a pass catcher.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you guys all for being here today. Thank you to our sponsors, M.L.Rose Craft Beer and Burgers. Make sure you go get the Stoney Keeley burger. Thick Boy Burger.
I'm getting one tonight.
Hell yeah. Love to hear it. And thank you to Sinkers Beverages. Reminder that our Thursday and Saturday draft show / draft parties at Sinkers Beverages HQ. Tickets are on sale now. All proceeds go to the Our Kids Foundation. Super excited to be with you guys and having live in-person off the railsness, not just in this chat. We did not talk about the earlier one where the Titans need some insane bondage with Isaiah Bond. We didn't even get to that one, but either way, thank you guys all for being here. This has been the Hot Read Podcast, and until next week on Tuesday, we will talk to you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.